Good morning, YouTubers. Well, I've decided it's time to do another video. And this one's going to be about crop circles. It's going to be about a few other things, but insofar as they overlap to this. Pardon my sniffles and scratchy voice. I'm recovering from a bad cold. Anyway, long time ago I came to the conclusion that crop circles are basically a, pardon my French, mindfuck game. Okay? And basically, what it's sort of like either a psyop or an experiment, like put some stuff out there and then see how the humans respond in the media. Okay? And so it's like they aren't really telling us anything. Now, there's it is just a lot of talk about fake crop circles, but there are a way of telling a difference. The real crop circles, that is, the ones produced by unusual technology, whether it is human in origin, a black op, Nazis on the moon, Earth-based breakaway civilization, or actually extraterrestrial in origin, and the latter regardless of whether that is a separate creation somewhere by God in its origins or the result of pre-flood civilization in all its extreme and unpleasant developments, having engaged in genetic engineering to produce types of humans capable of operating in extreme environments set off world, and the ancestors of the modern ones escaped the flood to some extent. Probably other cataclysms ripped other places as well. Consider the Great Gash on the surface of Mars, for example. Our excess water, their lack of same. We seem to have the continental shelf and then the continental shapes as if perhaps some of the water here originates somewhere else, but whatever. Aside from these issues, whatever the crop circles come from, the real ones are characterized by changes in the soil and by the stems where they grow in joints. The base joints, I believe it is, have been subjected to heating, like from microwaves, that cause them to fall over. However, according to one source, these don't actually die. They continue growing, but lying sideways. Someone pointed out briefly that this is also destructive to the crops owned by the people in whose lands this occurs. As usual, these people are doing these remarkable things, aren't very considerate of us. Now, the crop circles started out simple, and then they got more complex. And in their complexity, they seem to mirror whatever seems to be the latest thing that's going on. These in popular culture. Fractals become a big deal. Okay, all of a sudden we're getting fractal designs. Includes Mandelbrot set and the whole 9 yards. Gray aliens and computers and stuff like that. Okay, there's this crop circle with a gray alien holding big old computer disk what may or may not be ASCII code on it and some kind of message. It's seems to imply that you can't trust anything out there, but there are some good whatever. Again, this would fit the picture being painted by the UFO abductees, contactees. These are people who are met by aliens who make like they're friendly. I noticed that these latter category are usually the so-called Nordics, which were characteristic of the George Adamski contactee type aliens in the 50s and maybe early 60s, and they were Adamski was friends with this character George Hunt Williamson, which is actually was a Romanian Iron Guard type of fascist, mystical fascist type thing. So, you know, the whole thing's pretty stinks to high heaven or some kind of Nazi-connected operation. There was a big post-war escape, but that's another matter. The latest thing is you got ASCII code again. You got one thing out there where interpreting part of the symbol as ASCII code, you come up with the names Ea and Enki. Now these are the names of gods in the equivalent to each other in the Babylonian and Sumerian pantheon. And a big thing that's been going on for some time now is this idea of the Anunnaki. Now, Sitchin, if you go to www.beforeus, all one word, .com/Sitchin, SITCHIN.pdf, you will get a very good exposure of everything wrong. This guy was total fraud. Okay? And because of this fact, it's pretty obvious you're not going to have the style he presents in his translations, so-called, are just not characteristic of the clipped way people wrote with limited resources back then. It doesn't fit at all, so I never bought it. And because of this, I tended to ignore the whole idea of there being this incoming monster planet or whatever, dark star. But there's some reason to believe, independent of all that, that the elites are paying attention to something big out there that's going to create some sort of a problem. The sudden launching of IRAS telescopes, positioning a telescope at the South Pole, and so on and so forth. Well, another thing about this focus on the Anunnaki, which does not mean rocket people or anything like that. It's just these deified dead people. It's a term that refers to all these various so-called gods. What you have here is an effort to revive, either to dismiss everything, Bible stories, etc., disasters as being strictly natural instead of divine intervention, as they showed in another video. The cycle, most likely, for this thing coming around is more like 783.5 years, and not 3,600. Another estimate is more like 2,500. And whether it raises hell with this or does almost nothing depends entirely on its position relevant to us in the sun when it breaks ecliptic. The reports on these large objects out there, and so the positions are kind of a little off, and the distance a bit off, unless there was a misprint or deliberate obfuscation. So anyway, this, and maybe just a one-time event, it does fit the Revelation chapter 6 disaster right after the fourth horseman. Now, one way of interpreting the Revelation things, according to one theorist years ago, was that instead of being exact sequential, they overlap a bit. So some of the fourth horseman's activities would overlap into the time of the disaster and so on, perhaps. So anyway, and now we got this increased interest in the so-called Anunnaki, so now we got this thing which may be pointing to that. Basically, the thing to do in dealing with crop circles, I figured out a long time ago, is ignore them. Just either an effort to fuck with our heads, or to mock us, or to see how we react. Except it seems to be mirroring interests we already have. And something similar has been observed in connection with some of the stuff the UFO people talk about too, including always this effort to focus us on disaster and so on, without necessarily any positive suggestions for dealing with it either. It's just a state of fear and perhaps a willingness to deal with them if they turned up during such a context. Anyway, the the interesting thing about um, the issue of all these false gods and so forth is when you push way, way back in time, there seems to be indication of a monotheism that also orients around names and concepts that are somewhat similar to the name Yahweh. There's an ancient Egyptian, very early primordial, something like that. Um, the Bible speaks of Yahweh, or perhaps the short form of his name, being called on in the days of Seth, Adam's second son, or third son, and who replaced Abel after Cain killed Abel. And of course, God made covenant with all of the creatures, including Adam and the animals, who would never come, just send a deluge to destroy all life on earth as he had done after the flood. So, we don't have to look at that. Coastal inundations is one thing, but 2012 world flood, that's nonsense. Now, there's been a lot of disinformation and obfuscation out there regarding any incoming disaster, wrong dates, etc., linking it up to crazy ideas so that the more level-headed, insane, not to mention Christian, or Bible-oriented Jew even would tend to ignore it and be caught out in unprotected and unprepared. Those who do pay attention might be those that were less inclined to take the Bible that seriously. Those who do take it seriously and accept the 3,600-year cycle thing would be split between two. Those who just sort of they believe in Jesus, but they're willing to dismiss everything before that as just myths. And divine interventions is strictly natural. Others would say, yes, divine intervention, and this is how God did it. The name Ea, or Yah, seems to be relatable to the name Yahweh. And in the Gnostic period, what was done was these heretics would go and they would argue that the creator of the physical realm was not the Most High God, and that Jesus came from the Most High God and was not fully human or something like that. And maybe he only appeared physical, not really so, and to rescue the divine spark from the physical material world. And all this was like a hybrid of some higher forms of pagan philosophy, plus twisted misapplications of a few things that Paul said. And so I think that the same procedure went on years ago, thousands of years ago, when polytheism and paganism developed. You had these people who were highly honored, and then they were deified, and then gradually the Most High God got to be more and more ignored. And not only that, they posited some higher God, and then Ea gets positioned as 2 or 3 removes down, or 4 removes down, whatever, in a genealogy of gods. But this is the one who warned Nephishtim to make the ark and escape. So apparently, after cloaking the truth of a bunch of lies, nonetheless, the name Yah was powerful against demons, as the Babylonian poem 7 or they shows. They were these 7 categories of demons seem to be servants, even friends of the false gods, but afraid of the Yah. So, and then the true God made himself known again without the trappings of the false god pantheons and connections with that to Moses, and rebuilt the true faith from there, and said he would starve the false gods, and he did, because all those sacrifices have to do with feeding them, but God needs no feeding. Anyway, that's it for now. Just ignore these crop circles.